Welcome to the Smart Publishing Impact Series. I'm Renee Lautermilch, Chief Editor at Smart Publishing, and this is the podcast where we dive deep into the stories of authors who are changing lives through their books. In each episode, we'll uncover the inspiration behind their work, their journey to becoming an author, and the impact they're making on the world. So if you're passionate about the power of storytelling, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Your support helps us amplify these voices and their incredible stories. Let's get started. All right, today I'm excited to welcome our first guests to our inaugural episode, Henry and Danielle Mims, or Hen and Dani, as they're known from their book, More Than Love Notes and Laughter, Hen and Dani's Guide to Building a Relationship Beyond the Ordinary. Danielle and Henry Mims are a dynamic duo, as you can see if you're watching, or as you'll hear real soon, whose journey is a testament to resilience, love, and authenticity. Danielle, a speaker and advocate for self-love and healing, inspires others with her warm-hearted approach and personal story of overcoming adversity. Henry, a gifted storyteller and writer, channels his life experiences, including overcoming deafness and personal loss, into meaningful narratives. Together, they bring their unique perspectives to More Than Love Notes and Laughter. And they have been married since 2021. They, in their book, share insights on love, growth, building intentional relationships, and inspiring others to cultivate connection, freedom, and peace. So officially, welcome to the podcast, Henry and Danielle.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, you bet. So I would love it if you could tell our listeners just a little bit more about yourselves and your background and how you found each other.
Okay, I'll go first. So, well, I am Dani, and I pretty much have had a fairly normal upbringing. I had the most amazing have the most amazing parents. I'm kind of in the middle of 4 siblings. But I grew up in a very godly home, raised in the church, and ended up not realizing that at a very young age. I think my self-love was probably not where it was meant to be. I ended up getting married young to my first husband, and we had some fertility issues, and we had lots of things going on. But first and foremost, I can look back now and say I did not love myself. And because I didn't love myself, there was no way that I was going to be able to love my first husband in the way that a true marriage should be. And we were together for about 20 years, have 2 amazing sons. But it wasn't until I was reaching my 40th birthday that I and my sister gave me some good words of wisdom. She's so not a crier. She's not emotional or anything. And it was on our sister cruise that she shared with me some powerful words. One of which was, if you were to die today, would you be able to say that you truly lived? And at that moment, I couldn't say that I had truly lived my life. So I knew that what I needed to do was end the relationship. And we ended up getting divorced the next year. Never in my life, I was never, ever, ever planning on getting married again. No one was like my dad. So therefore I was like, I'm not doing it. But God has certainly a sense of humor and a different way of planning out our future than we can imagine. And so at 40 years old, I was living with my parents, with my 2 boys, and just ready to go on living life. Unfortunately, I am not a cat person, but I thought it's fine. I'm never going to marry again. So I'll just be the cat woman or the dog woman with my 2 kids. And I'm fine with that. Again, God has a sense of humor. And I guess I'll let Henry tell a little bit about himself so I don't spoil how we actually met.
Yeah. Okay. So, kind of dive into a little bit about me. I was born in Pensacola, Florida. My mom is from Cuba. Then she came from the island, literally. And then my dad is just a southern man. Was a southern man. And that's kind of important because growing up, being that my mom is from Cuba, she came over here from an island, not knowing any English, not knowing anything. My grandfather came over with a degree in accounting. They didn't recognize it, so he had to do it all over again while learning English. So that kind of led to them finding out I was deaf. I had meningitis at 8 months. They didn't know I was deaf until I was about 3. They thought I had behavioral issues because I was aggressive towards my mom. Understood my dad, though. She had a high-pitched voice. My dad had a low-pitched voice. Also led to some anger issues with Sesame Street. Go into that at another time. But and then from there, it was kind of like the tough love. I know this sucks, but you can do it because I had to come from somewhere and relearn everything all over again. You can too, kind of way. As best as you could to a 3, 4, 5-year-old, right? So then I was in special ed. My dad helped me out a lot in being able to overcome because I like bike racing. I wanted to be a bike racer. Anything I wanted to do, let's go. Some stuff I sucked at. You just learn how to get better at it. Some stuff I was just instantly better at, But he kind of taught me how to navigate between just because you're good at it doesn't mean you stop trying. Just because you're horrible at it doesn't mean you can't get better. Things like that. And that carried on throughout my whole life, though. In overcoming the obstacles, I'm extremely competitive. I mean, I would shuck my mother in basketball if I had to win a game. Like, I'm extremely competitive. So I wouldn't really. So if mom's watching, I wouldn't really do that, mom. I'm gonna wink, And then as time went on, I went through the things. I got in trouble when I was younger. I'd been arrested, stuff like that. I was looking at prison time. Kind of got my life straight by a miracle. And then from there, I decided to go into culinary. That brought me to Orlando, where I met my first wife. And then Hurricane Ivan came and demolished where I was living in Pensacola, and this was back in 2004, 2005. Came and just absolutely destroyed everything. So I had nothing to go back to. I had no job. I didn't really even have a house to go back to. So from there, I was with her for 14 years. We had 2 boys. Before her, I had a daughter with another woman. Her name was Jordan, and then I had Damien and Christian as well. So I was with her for about 14 years, 15 years, about 15 years. And ups and downs and stuff like that. Not everything was her fault. Not everything was my fault. There was a lot of lessons learned, And then when we separated, funny story is that so her and I were supposed to run into each other repeatedly, and one of her best friends is one of my best friends' wife. So I met him in Boy Scouts with my oldest boy. And so as time went on, they hung out together. We hung out together, but we never hung out together. So I would hear her in the background at a conference, or I was supposed to go to a Christmas parade one time, and I got called into work. So my friend took my son to my oldest boy to the Christmas parade. She ended up watching him, even though we had never met. Because he was all over the place, and he was all over the place, like all over the place.
I was like, who is this kid? He's going to get hit by a parade float. She's like, oh, he's, this dad that he wasn't able to make it and stuff. And I'm like, this kid is crazy. And he's, but he's not all over the place now. He's very calm now. So there's hope out there if you have one of those kids.
Yeah. So, and then time on we separated. And then in that separation, I had to make a decision. Did I want to be comfortable or did I want to grow? And being comfortable is so easy to do, right? Because you've already known it, you've experienced it. You have expectations. Even if you don't like them, you still know what to expect. There's no anxiety in it. But I decided, no, I wanted to grow. And unfortunately, that caused me to have to close doors on a lot of relationships that I had. Not that there was anything wrong with them. It's just we weren't in the same place, with friends and even some family. I had to learn that the old me was not the same as the new me. So then I had to relearn who I was, outside of everything. Because oftentimes when you're together with someone for so long, you become an identity together rather than 2 forces of nature coming together for one better good, And that was one of the things I was lacking. Was I was in this relationship for so long, that was my identity. Who am I now? So I learned that there were a lot of things from when I was younger that I did not enjoy as much today. So I had to shift that. As time went on, though, we ended up meeting because I mean, we have different versions. She thinks differently, but whatever.
Don't all couples?
Yeah.
I mean, mine's the truth. But I actually, how it happened was, it'd been some months. I was living with my parents again, no intentions of, and let me just say that I started dating my first husband when I was 19. So I had not hit the dating pool at all. There was just not much of that. So here I am at 40, 2 kids, living with the parents. Now we're going to start trying to date. My friends were like, just do it. Just go meet people. And I'm like, okay. I get ghosted. I'm like, listen, I'm 40. He was younger. Shout out to him. But, and I get ghosted and I'm like, is this what this is? Like, I don't want any part of it. Like, just be an adult. Say you don't want to talk to me. So my poor friend, Nikki, did not know. So she's like, oh my God, are you excited for your date? And I'm like, about that. I got ghosted. And she's like, oh, I'm going to tell Henry to, cause okay, we had met like a bunch of months before, but not at all romantic. Like there was nothing, absolutely nothing. I will be honest in my version of the fact that when I said to my friend, so, tell me about him. First of all, his name is Henry. Like, what, like
Amazing.
40 something year old named Henry. I feel like I was expecting like a 7-year-old to like roll up. And we were at like a beach, like a beachside cabana place. So I'm like, all right. And so my friend is like, he's totally not your type, but he's funny and he's such a nice guy. And I was like, okay. So he rolls in. I'm like, yeah, he's not my type. I like the balls with the bald with the tattoo and all that stuff. And that was not him at all. So nerdy. I was like, okay. So I could just be myself. And now I will say
unique
that
is what you meant, like unique.
So at that time, we were both not in a good place because the divorce talk had just started on both sides. And so it was my first night of not having my kids. So went out to this place and I'm like, okay, I will admit that I had way too much to drink that night. So we can all say that there's times in our lives when things are not going well, you find some outlet. It was not the best outlet for me, obviously. But I had way too much to drink that night. But I didn't care about anything. I was myself. We had the best absolute time. Like they both looked at us, our friends, and they were like, you guys need to like have a show like on the road. And we're like, okay, because they're like, you guys are hilarious. I'm like, okay, totally not my type. But we had a great time.
I was her type.
No, we had a great time that night. But then left and like it wasn't exchanging numbers. It was nothing. We had no expectations. I didn't even know if I was ever going to see him again. And I was okay with it because again, not my type. But so fast forward quite a few months. I get ghosted. She's like, listen, I'm going to tell Henry I'm going to give you Henry's number. Text him. At least you guys can go out and have a nice dinner, not chicken nuggets and French fries, and go see a movie, not an animated one. And I'm like, okay, fine. I said, but I am traditional. He has to text me. I'm not texting him first. So she gave him his number. 2 minutes later, hey, how are you? And then like, I want to say the rest is history because, I mean, it's obviously history because we were together, but I think it was the big thing was we started truly out as friends.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, had no expectations. We set up a time for us to meet like a week later, of course, when we didn't have our kids, because that was one of the biggest things. Our kids came first. We weren't going to allow some person just to come in and take the place of our kids as being the most important thing. And I think a lot of times, unfortunately, that happens when you find yourself, faced with divorce or faced with life changes, then things that should be up there kind of get moved out of the way. I mean, there has to be a balance of finding your self-love and finding your importance in the world and taking back that title of how important you are. But you also have to remember that there's kids that are depending on you. And that was huge for us because we both were like, listen, I mean, when we met for our first date, like it was amazing. Like his phone was ringing and he's like, I'm so sorry. But I'm like, no, that's your kid. Like answer the phone. And I remember that the call, that was funny. Like your faucet was like going off or something. But we made this plan to go out and meet each other. And I am like, I'm a former diva. I used to like dress to the nines, like everything under the sun. This is how much I did not think that this was going to be a romantic partner. I literally had jeans, a t-shirt, like not even like a blouse, t-shirt and sneakers. And I just rolled up there like, all right, it is what it is. It's whatever.
Very similar to what you're wearing right now.
No, I'm cute today.
You are cute. You were cute then.
But I was cute then. But
You're wearing boat slippers now too.
I am, because I got you. But but he was dressed to the nines, like had a button-down shirt and everything. And I was like, okay, it's whatever.
That's how I roll out of bed though, so don't get it twisted.
But we made plans to like have dinner and then go to a movie.
Yep.
Dumb me. Like, how do you ask the deaf guy to go to the movie? And like, I'm like, gosh. But I didn't even think about it, because then he's like, after we were in conversation for the first 2 hours, we did. He's like, do you even want to go to the movies? I'm like, no, we're good. Let's just, keep going. But I think we talked about everything under the sun then. And we laugh about it because I asked some questions that most people wouldn't ask on the first date. But I had to get it out there, and I had to make sure that I was going to ask the questions, because I guess dating's different. They won't tell you unless you ask.
You got to pre-qualify them.
Yes.
One of the things that did kind of happen on the first date, I mean, she kind of hit the nail on the head as far as when we first met. But as far as that date that we had, one of the things is I'm a very short and to the point. Like, I don't even know. There's no. She likes to paint beautiful pictures, and I just want the bullet points. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that we did was we asked each other questions to cancel each other out, to be like, no, next, because there was I wasn't looking, and we also, the expectation in the beginning was, when we talked, we went there as friends and to have a date, but there was also, I don't know if it was subconscious or not, but we didn't want to waste each other's time either.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that happens nowadays is that so many people, especially when they're trying to get back out into the world, is that they're afraid of being lonely more than they are finding the one. You know what I mean? And it's just kind of, I think it worked out the best for us, is because then it led to different conversations and side conversations. We got there like 6:30 or 7. We closed the place down. It was 10 or 11 o'clock. We closed the place down, and then we went and sat in my truck and talked even more. So one of the things that really aligned us, though, was our faith. So that was one of the things that was very important to us, was faith. Our parenting styles and viewpoints on that are very different, but we were willing to work together and make it happen from carrying forward. But it was a while before the kids even saw each other or anything like that. It was just basically her and I for a while. And then the kids which was kind of hard to do, because my friend is married to her friend and their friends with their kids. So it's kind of hard to not do it. But yeah, we made it happen though.
We're very respectful of the fact that we wanted to make sure this is a person that we wanted our children to be around, because you just don't know about people. And just like a job interview, they're going to show you their best face. Then months later, you find out that they don't like to work. Right. So it's the same thing with a relationship, especially it wasn't just me. Before, when I was dating, it was just about me. It is not about me. My children are of the utmost importance, and they came first. And I have to be careful about who I'm surrounding my children with, especially because they were already in a vulnerable situation going through a divorce. They were young. Right. And one of the things that we did was I got counseling for my kids. I had already known that this was on the way to happening. So I wanted to make sure that I was not only prepared, but they were prepared as well, as best as we could. But I think that's when it truly started as a friendship. And then it progressed from there to where we were making those lists and checking off the boxes that I made it so hard. Like, I'm like, okay, there's no way that he's going to be able to check these boxes. It's been great. Or he's going to be out. And like one of the things, I mean, because it's in our book, but one of the things is that, that I wanted him to feel like he adored me. I mean, what woman doesn't want their man to adore them? Like, I was like, please, I just want you to adore me. Like, when you see me, like, oh, hearts in the eyes, like the cartoons. And I also wanted somebody who felt like they won the lottery with me. These are not normal things that someone would put on a list, but I knew he was going to fail. So then I was like, okay, then he's out. And then the third one was somebody I wanted to build an empire with. Like, I've always been a person that just wants to go and do and make things happen. And I just wanted somebody to do that with. If not, I was going to do it by myself. And so I made this unrealistic list until we started changing from a friendship into, I'm like, oh my gosh, as I said in the book, like my heart softened. I think the biggest I think the biggest thing is when you go through the divorce or you go through a big loss in a relationship, there's so much. I was with my ex for 20 years. Like, that's a long time. And one of the biggest things, and I owe it to our parents because our parents have been through second marriages as well. And so my parents, when they first met him, because of course I'm like, great, here I go again. And this is months down the line when I'm like, all right, I'm ready to at least introduce my parents to them because I'm living in their house. It's a little difficult to kind of hide that. So when they met with him, we went to the same restaurant, funny enough, and we sat there. And my mom said, because my dad's a man of few words, my mom is the woman. She'll say, and she said, Henry, if you can't love her children the same way that you love your children, then you need to leave right now. And she said the same exact thing to me because that's how she raised my siblings and with my dad, because again, a blended family. And that is important. She also said, if you can't correct them the same way, then just go. Don't even get involved. And that is so true because they're not my stepkids. They are my children now. And if we would have gone in as, oh no, those are your children, you deal with that nonsense, we would have never made it. It would have just been just a fun kind of a fling thing. And that's not what either one of us were looking for.
It seems like that just gets you so much more invested. You're not just dating the person. It's an entire family.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
I
I
love
mean,
that.
when you're blending, especially when you're blending. So, okay. So I am very, I'm a lot more of a hammer, for lack of a better, how you want to say
And the
it.
disciplinary side of
Yeah,
things,
I am much more, I'm not going to repeat myself twice.
you're the
You're not
dad.
going nowhere. I take the door off. Like, I have no problem with any of it. I have no problem with anybody being mad at me. So it's just get the message across. She's more flower fields and gardening kind of, oh, they need to grow. They need to be nourished. And I'm like, somebody needs to pull the weeds, so it's kind of that thing.
My
But
background psychology. So
yeah,
kind of makes sense.
background in life. I live the life. I'm from the street.
So I love this. So I'm sitting here listening to you guys, and I should know your story really well. I mean, I edited your book, but I had no idea of all of the kind of like parallel universe you guys lived in next to each other, to where you've actually met each other before. You had so much in common. The whole 6 degrees of separation. It was like 1 degree of separation with you guys. So that was really really interesting. It's almost like, going back to faith, it's almost like it's like a predestined
Mhm.
thing. It was bound to happen. It was always going to happen. I love that. Let's switch gears a little bit because you guys wrote a book. That book came out last year on Amazon, December 17th. For those who didn't get a copy then, you can go on Amazon. More Than Love Notes and Laughter is the search that'll bring it up. It was a bestseller. It actually swept all of its categories to hit bestseller when it came out, and lingered up in bestseller for a pretty good part of, I think, that week. What motivated you guys to write a book?
Well, I think I'll take the reins on this one. So what motivated us to write a book was, so there were a lot of, for example, when you're in a church, right? And you go to the church and everybody, and people outside the church who don't normally go to church, they think that it's a bunch of people trying to go and be perfect. No, it's a house of the sick, right?
Mm.
And that is where you go to find redemption, to find faith, to find grace, right? So when we were coming together and gelling, we made such a focus on trying to help each other be better. With that comes disappointing conversations. We talk about it in the book often. So in our disappointing conversations, we chose to listen rather than respond. And we chose to try and work it and have the trust in each other that we were being genuine. Because a lot of times when you have disappointing conversations, one side always thinks the other one's trying to one up them or trying to get something in or trying to be slick or something like that. But we approached it by, this is not what we're bringing into our relationship, regardless of what happened over the last 40 years. You know, and it's not just about the previous relationships, it's about the 30 before then with your friends, people who screwed you, all those things, right? We're not bringing that in here, okay? So when we did that, we started seeing that a lot of these obstacles that people were complaining about, divorcing over, all these things were not happening with us because we were overcoming by having those talks and putting them into action and respecting each other's boundaries, right? So the more we did this, the more people started leaning on us and going, hey, wait a minute, how are you, this can't be, because at first it was, oh, you're in the honeymoon phase. But the honeymoon phase never ended. And the reason why is because we take the little trips, we do all these little things. It's not the big over the top things. It's all the little things, it's the details, right? So the more we did that, the more people leaned on us, the more we were, and at first it was a joke. It was like, oh, we should probably write a book on this, you know? And then we started talking about, if we did write a book on it, what would we write on it? And then it was, well, you know, we want to make it simple because we don't want anybody to get stressed by it. If we did this, we did that, and it was always if, right? But then if turned into, I started typing on the keyboard. She started coming up with ideas. And again, this was not there was nothing in our head in the beginning that was, we are going to write a book and it's going to be a bestseller. Matter of fact, I was already trying to write a book on communication from a deaf perspective. And that just transitioned into, we talked more, I typed more, she typed more, she said more. And a lot of it was grabbing our phones and just talking into it with ideas that we had, and then taking that and writing it, and then just going on from there. And that's how it started. And then I don't even know how we came to the understanding that, holy crap, we're writing a book. Like, I don't even, you know, it happened. And then when it happened, then when we started realizing that this book was really happening, it became intentional, you know? And then it was, okay. But in the book, more than anything else, it was, and when you read the book, you'll see there's a lot of moments in there that a lot of couples won't share just because of the spotlight put on certain ideas or versions of truth. But you have to. And just because her truth is different than mine does not mean it is not true. It's just, I'm in a different perspective. I have a different life that I lived before her. You know, I'm almost going to prison, the crew that I ran with, all that stuff. Nothing like hers. So my experiences aren't always going to be the same as hers. And there's value in that because she is her own person. And we tried to make sure that we didn't lose who we were and that we actually made it work. We're two separate individuals, but we're together for the same purpose. And that purpose is what kind of changed it as far as the book. The intention and the purpose, and trying to show that you can do it too.
And I think with us, like over the years, in the beginning, of course, everybody, oh, you're in the honeymoon stage, and we kind of were. I mean, every relationship has that start off, but I think what people forget is when you're blending a family, like we only got to date 50% of the time, because on the weekends that we didn't have our children, we did not see each other. When we got married, we only got to be newlyweds 50% of the time, because when our kids were all together and we have the same schedules, that was it. It was mom and dad instead of husband and wife. Not saying that got pushed to the side, because we still made those intentional moments to have as husband and wife. But our biggest goal is to show our children, you can have a relationship like this the first time. You don't have to go through all the heartaches and all those things. I mean, I'm happy that I went through the experiences that I went through, but gosh, there was lots of tears and there was heartache. And so we started off with the goal of not wanting to set our kids up for the same, basically a generational curse. We don't want that to happen to them. But then we were like, it's not just about our kids. There's like other people that actually look up to us, because then it was, oh, I guess it's not really the honeymoon stage anymore, because what you see is what you truly get. I mean, this man will walk outside the door, our poor neighborhood, and will sing to me every time I'm coming home, I love you. And I'm like, oh God. But you know what? I'm like, you know what? I did that. Like, this is him.
Okay.
He absolutely, truly adores me. Again, something I didn't think I was going to ever find. But it's not like it's just because it's Henry. Other people can have that too. Like, you just have to see what makes it fit. You may not want somebody singing to you, but is it that, they come home and they help you with making dinner, whatever it is, like those are the things that you have to obviously talk about. So this book really gives reflection moments at the end of each, that we give our tips and we give our side. And it's a great way because we do it from his version and then my version, because obviously, even from when we first met, we see things very differently. So it's a great way to look at it from the man's side or the woman's side, or whomever. And again, it's not just about marriages. This can be for friendships too, because you got to communicate with your friends. You got to communicate with your coworkers. All these things. It's not like it's just for a relationship as far as a romantic one. This is for anything in life. And I just really think that we've made our focus go from how can we help our kids to have a great future to helping anybody out there to have to find this great love, because it is like truly such an amazing feeling to know that my future is so bright that we are going to build an empire. And he's checked off box number 3. I mean, we're making it happen.
So one of the things I do want to point out real quickly, though, is again, when we talk about the relationship with the exes, it wasn't all their fault. I just want to be very clear about that. There was a lot of us involved in that as well as individuals within our own respective relationships that I wish I had done differently. I'm sure they wish they had done differently. I'm sure her. And so it's not like we're saying, oh, we did everything right, they did everything wrong. We're just not going to allow that from the other partner. No, it also is a self-reflection. There are things that I brought to her attention in the book as well. You'll see there are things that I brought to her attention that at first she was like, no. Well, I was like, no. And then it was, wait a minute, if she's seeing that, why is she seeing that? If he's seeing that, why is he seeing that? Okay. Because again, you see yourself a little bit differently than you really are sometimes, especially in different moments. And it really helps to have somebody that truly looks in for the best in you. And that's one of the reasons why we did that, because a lot of people are scared to do that.
Yeah.
Because they've been screwed so many times, which I understand. But
And I will say that because of how we've learned about moving forward in our futures, what we will accept, what we will not, and what we won't do again, that's allowed for reconciliation with our exes. Like, for the most part, I mean, you're going to have your bumps in the road, but we all get along, my ex bought our book, so I'm very happy. And we've been able to apologize to the other person because it isn't only one-sided. And we also give them our blessing and vice versa, so that they don't have to go through the same thing in their future relationships. Because again, honestly, if you have kids in this, it all encompasses how the kids are going to have in their future, the relationships that they're going to have. So it's been great all around.
It's amazing. That really brings up the question in my mind, since the book has been out, and of course there's a lot of this wisdom that's shared in the book. What has the response from readers been so far?
Been absolutely amazing. So we have, and when I say absolutely amazing, some of these people I've never met in my life, and are reaching out to us and, hey, in this chapter, hey, in this. Well, because when you read the book, a lot of people think that a lot of the stuff in there didn't really happen. They're all from actual, moments. I had this happen, and the response has been, a couple of people have been like, there's no way. But then the ones that do know us are like, oh, yes, way. It's just been amazing. And there's been people who, like, for example, I have one friend of mine who's a handyman. And he's like, man, I am so deep in your book, and now my wife is looking at it. So and this question, and there's, because there's the end of chapter questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and people are having dialogue around those questions and opening up based on, they see how different her and I are. Because if you see us in person, we're not similar at all, and that's okay.
I can see that.
So wait. So yeah. So it's been such a huge, just positive response. And again, I never thought this would happen. This was not. Never thought this would happen.
We've had people that have known us, and even our parents. We had our parents read it first. They were just like, they were amazed, and they're just like, I mean, we knew you could do it, but like, wow. And so, I mean, and we got bragging rights in our family. We're the first authors, so
Best-selling
authors. But I think for me, and I even shared this the other day on one of my posts, is that not only the response from other people, but for myself, like this was huge, because he had most of his writing done way before me, I'll be honest. And it honestly wasn't until he meets and talks to everybody, hence how he met Jonathan, and then how that whole thing happened. And he's just like, I really want to write this book. And I'm like, I am busy. I have things to do. Like, and so then he's like, can you please just talk to Jonathan? And I'll be honest, and I'm sorry, Jonathan, but I was like, yes, I'll just talk to Jonathan just to humor him, because I just want him to get off my back about this.
You
And
never just talk to Jonathan, though. And I think that you learned that lesson.
Yes.
For listeners out there, Jonathan Lautermilch, my husband.
They were the most amazing couple. It was like, and I want to say, with our faith, God made this happen. Like this connection with us and your husband, and you, it's incredible, because he just talks to everybody. He was helping him more on a professional relationship as far as with his work and stuff. And I was just reluctant to just do anything. I'm like, fine. And the second that I like met with Jonathan, and then he's like, oh, you have to meet my wife and this, that, and the other. Insane. It was just like, and then we find out like we're very similar. So
yeah,
it's
wild.
Thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that feeling, like it's helped me in my own. I'm pretty confident, but there's times, we all have our moments, and there's times when I'm like, is this really going to happen? But like, I mean, every step of this book writing process, like when we had the paper one in our hand, like I got emotional. I'm like, I actually did this. We did this. We made it happen. And that's just, it makes me speechless at times.
So to kind of sum that up, if you looked back at your author journey, what's been the most rewarding part of becoming published authors, best-selling authors?
Well, for me, I tell people not to talk to the talent. Don't make eye contact. You know who I am? Obviously not. Okay. But no. So I think the most rewarding part about it is, for me, how many times do couples say that they're going to do these grand things, and they think it's so grand and so far, but they talk grand things that if it's so far away that it's almost unattainable, that for them to hit it would be just top of the world, right? And this is now the third or fourth thing that we've said, wouldn't it be funny? And then we go after it, and then we do it, and we do it as a couple. And it's not, and that's part of the whole empire building, and that's part of the whole checking off the boxes in the beginning. Can you see yourself doing something with somebody that you have? Let's say you have a bucket list, and you want to check it off, and there's 15 of them. Do you think this person will help you check off those boxes? Everybody wants to be a best-selling author. Everybody I ask, and I say, is there a book you would write? And they say, oh, of course. Would you want to be a best-seller? I have not had one person go, no. You know what I mean? So the fact that you did it with somebody, which I think would be a little bit more challenging than writing it by yourself, because there's some viewpoints that she has that are quite a bit different than mine, and especially in versions of events that have happened. Whatever, I might remember that. Okay, me. But I just love the idea that this is now another thing, because now the things that were so far off in the distance are now so much closer because we just overcame something else. So it's kind of like when you play a sport, the more shots you make, the more confident you are to take the next shot, which then means more shots you take, more shots that you make, and it just goes round and round. And kind of adds confidence to the fact that we just overcame this, we did this, and now the next thing is that it's going to be that much more attainable. Not that it's not going to be hard, but we're going to get through it, we're going to overcome it, and we're going to get it.
For me, I will say that, and we do owe you and Jonathan the most, because everybody's like, oh, I bet it was so hard. I'm like, I almost want to lie, because I'm like, no, it was actually super easy. Like, you're just writing from your heart. Like, you're putting things, I mean, it might be different if you were making like a novel or something, and you'd have to but we're putting our actual life events. We don't hold back. We're very transparent in them. But once I met you and you were like, listen, don't overthink it. It was almost like you were like, you've done this before. It was like, don't overthink it, just do it. And I received the most encouragement from you, like, just keep going, just do it. And honestly, when we first sent you our first draft, I was like, oh my gosh. We thought, okay, are we going to get red pen? Like, I honestly was like, this is not that great.
Like the Christmas story.
Yes. It's F's, like, we're going to get F's. And then you came back and you were just so encouraging that this was like the easiest process. I'm serious about this. It was not hard to write a book. I don't know. I mean, I just think that it was just easy, and it was fulfilling too. It was fun. Like, connecting, not only with you and Jonathan, but seeing like, hey, this is how this goes. And the whole process is actually awesome. Like, the editing and the whole thing, and finding out from Amazon, like, how to do that background stuff. And like, we're authors, like, this is what we do. But it was so easy, and it was just stress-free. And the fact that we were able to get our story out that easily, I'm like, I'm ready for the next one.
And then the fact that one of the things I think also helped was that Jonathan knows me.
Yeah.
So he's like, all right, Squirrel, we need to do these 3 things today, like right now. Like, when you get off the computer, okay, are you writing this? Okay, we need to do this today. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do it. No. We need to do this today. So the first 3 things that I did, maybe not in any particular order, I was like, okay, let's do this. Because I'm so just free will, I don't even have a schedule. I'm like, whatever. So yeah, that kind of helped out. That kind of alleviated the stress off of her. Was that, yeah.
And I mean, the way that you guys kind of came in thinking like, oh my gosh, are we going to get red penned? Are we going to get an F? And that's such a common thing that we see in people who have written all or most of a book. And it's imposter syndrome, right? It gets all of us. And it's this idea that, is my story even interesting? Is anybody going to even care? Well, I'm not a writer. This is going to look terrible. But I mean, I don't think I've ever heard a concept or read a manuscript where I thought like, oh, this is just trash. This is terrible. Everybody has that unique story and that unique value that they can bring to the world. And you guys had such a unique concept of doing the he said, she said. You just don't see that out there in books, especially relationship books. They're typically told from a single point of view. That when I first read it, I was like, oh, we've really got something here. And then the advice in the book is just so good. Like, there were times when I was editing it where I was like, oh, Jonathan and I kind of do this, but we don't do it intentionally. And so now that like I've got a better understanding of like what this is and why you do it, okay, now I'm going to go to him and talk about doing this more intentionally, like all the communication check-ins. On the days when we just don't happen to do that, those days are a little bit more challenging. And so, no, I'm glad that you see now that what you guys had was gold. What advice would you guys give to someone who is considering writing a book?
Besides talking to you and Jonathan, just do it. Just there, like you said, like, I didn't think that I had anything to offer the world, but you just don't know. And like, many times in my life, I can look back and say, wow, had I not met that person, that would not have pushed me forward in a certain area in my life. And the same thing can be said for him. Had I not met him, I wouldn't have written this, but let's be honest. So it's like,
You wouldn't have had a reason to. Like, come
yes,
on,
dear. Yes. Well, I wouldn't have love notes. That's for sure. But I think it's just, don't overthink it. Just do it and at least start it. And like you told us, 1 hour. It just do that. We all have things that we take for granted and time that we waste. It's 1 hour to just start it. And even so, even if you don't think that it's worth anything, at least have somebody else read it, because there's someone in this world that is sharing the same experience that you do. And you never know, like that could truly save a life. Our goal is to truly save marriages and relationships. So that's it. Just do it. Just do it. I hate to use Nike's tagline. Just do it.
Good tagline.
It is. And then call Jonathan and Renee.
One of the things that really helped us as far as just making it happen was I still took note, even though it was a what if thought, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I did was I would talk into my phone. So if a deaf guy that can't say R's can talk into his phone and get ideas out there for things to talk about, 90% of which we did not use, just because it was just kind of like, that's neither here nor there. But I just started off just grabbing my phone and I would come up with an idea and I would talk about it. Why? Because in my brain, my squirrel little brain, in 2 minutes, I'm going to forget about it. And then it's going to pop up again at 3 a.m. Nowhere close to it. So that's one of the things that I did was I did a lot of talking into my phone, and then I would just copy and paste it and then put it into docs, and then I would write like what the idea actually was. And then Grammarly, because I'm a huge fan of beat literature, Jack Kerouac and all that stuff. So I tend to write and write and write and write without periods or anything. And Grammarly kind of set that up. But that was just that would be the biggest thing. And the other thing is that, okay, so we never wrote a book before, right? We never wrote a book separately or together. So when you're doing something that you've never done, and then on top of that, until we met you, we didn't have anybody around us who had done it. So then it was, what if I'm messing up? What if I'm this? And then all these things start creeping into your head. And what I did was I looked at it as like an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I have to beat this boss before I get to the next one. Okay, I screwed this up. This sounds stupid. And that a big part of it was having to get over the imposter syndrome of how stupid do I sound? How this, or how that, and what is this person going to think? And then another part of it was to stop caring. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how the advice I would give is to just do it. Start a minute, just talking to your phone about whatever idea it is you have. After a while, you're going to start to see a theme. Get with you, obviously. And then also read other books and stuff like that and see how you can be a little bit different, a little unique, just a little tweak. Just change it just a little bit, just so that you're you. That's what I would do.
And just to piggyback off that, be your true authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
But make sure that if you're going to write something like this, that you've truly healed, because that was the biggest thing for both of us. If we had not healed ourselves from past relationships and just experiences, how are we going to be authentic enough to write a book that somebody would want to hear?
Mm-hmm.
So because we both had that opportunity to heal, and it's not saying that everything's puppy dogs and rainbows every day. Like, we have moments where we have to like check each other, like right before this podcast when I was like, calm down, because he's very like wants his things done to perfection. And I'm just like, okay, we got this. We're going to talk about our book and ourselves. We're fine. The audio, everything's going to be fine. But you have to just make sure that you're healed, because old things will creep in. And then it just, that's exactly what is meant to happen. They want I don't know people's spiritual thing, but the devil is real, and he wants to be able to allow things to come in that's going to derail you from the purpose that you're meant to do in your life. And we know that this was what we're supposed to be doing in life. And so don't allow those outside distractions to come in and put those negative thoughts in your head, and to be able to move forward and to do what your greatness is in your future.
You guys have just shared so many ridiculous amounts of gold nuggets on this podcast that I know that our listeners have fallen in love with you guys the way that Jonathan and I did, and they're going to want to find you. So tell our listeners, Hen and Dani, where can they find you guys?
You can find us on, mostly we're on Facebook with More Than Love Notes and Laughter. If you type that into the Facebook search, you'll find our group. We're starting to branch out into Instagram, and we're going to be going into YouTube a bit more coming in the future. You can also find her on her Facebook and me, Henry Mims, on Facebook as well. And then Amazon, you can find our book. So there it is. By the way, when you look at the books, just to kind of say, so when I say, and this is for the men, for the women too, when you say it does not take much to simply adore the person you're with. These, if you look on I don't know if you can see it on there because of the light, but there's little notes. Those are literally the notes that were on our plates that I would give her and leave her.
He couldn't find paper, so we did paper plates and napkins, and it works for us. And that's obviously how we have More Than Love Notes, and always having some laughter in there. Yeah. So we would love for everybody to check us out and follow us, and who knows, might have a number 2 coming soon.
Maybe.
All right. Thank you guys so much. So listeners, that's a wrap for this episode of the Smart Publishing Impact Series. Thank you for joining me and our amazing guests, Henry and Danielle Mims. We explored their story and the impact their book is making. So if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an inspiring story. And if you found value here, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast. It helps us reach even more people who believe in the power of storytelling to change lives. Until next time, I'm Renee Lautermilch, reminding you to keep sharing your story because the world needs your voice.